Good morning, happy Friday. Welcome to the Pitch Track Chronicles, where fans become family. I am Uncle Taz. I'm here with Rob. I know Donald is in the States somewhere. He is MIA, but I'm sure that he is well. And like we said, closing out Wednesday's show, Donald and I will be at the game with Tampa on Monday for 1 o'clock. So shoot us a message on social media if you're going to be at the game and you want to hang out for a drink or some Yankee talk. We want to meet anybody that will be there. All are welcome to come and say hello. I love interacting with everybody in person just as much as I love interacting with everybody here. So with that being said, we are entering the second half of the season, and there are things that the Yankees. There are two things that the Yankees really need to focus on going into this second half. And it's the same mentality of when they started the first half of the season. And that is fundamental baseball and urgency not to lose. Yeah, and really improve themselves. Rob, I want to ask you first. What do you think the temperature is amongst not so much the fans? You know, we all know how we've been feeling. How do you think the players themselves are entering the second half of the season?
Well, if you're going by Nestor Cortez's Twitter, I guess they're pretty hungry. Same with Trevino. He's kind of echoing that a little bit on his social media. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that they feel mad. I'm hoping they feel pissed off by the way that first half ended because they looked like crap. That last month and a half, they were a bad baseball team. So hopefully they kind of woke them up a little bit, give them a break, give them a few days off, just retool and get back on track. But some guys need to step up. They're not gonna. It doesn't matter if they feel good as long as if they don't step up, then none of that matters. So I'm hoping that they some key guys start to contribute so we can actually get some wins again.
Yeah, it's definitely they got to go. You know, that back to basics type of play. And I, you know what? Let's before we go any further, we've been avoiding the roll call for a while, just because we've been so just entrenched in the discussion. But I do want to give everybody a quick little shout out, a little hello on this Friday morning. Ken, thanks for hanging out with us. It's always good to see you. Joan, good morning. Good morning, my lady. Stephen B, how is everything going? Lou, good to see you hanging out with us this morning. Medina in the morning. Medina, good to see you hanging out with us as well. FJ, always appreciate you. Mr. Barros, love you, bro. Nosebleed section, how's everything going? And also in the chat is Lynn from the Upper Deck, our Sunday show. So good morning, Lynn. Hope we are keeping your morning a little bit of a distraction from your workday on a positive note. Because I do think they're going to start off this second half on a positive note. Because of we can get into Nestor's tweet. You know, I'm not. I didn't dive too much into it. You know, every athlete thinks they're above. You know, that's part of the bravado of being a professional athlete. You know, you always think you're on the top. But I think that the going so long without winning a series, going against your rival, on the verge of sweeping your rival, and then walking off the field with egg on your face. I believe that's gonna resurrect the confidence in this team because they can do it. We've seen them do it. You know, and I think it's going to be one of those things where you're going to see. I think you're going to see a different type of confidence. Sitting on the shoulders of these players because we are coming into the second half stronger than we did the first half. I really do think that. We did not have Cole, for much of the first half, and we were able to succeed. Despite our feelings on DJ, his defense hasn't gone completely awry. He hasn't completely collapsed. Only with the bat. I can't defend his bat. You're also going to see. I think you're going to see a better bullpen, but it also always comes down to leadership. It's going to come down from Boone. He's got to figure out how to step up and kind of kick these guys in the ass a little bit. We can't keep going on like that where we go on these little runs and everything is great, and then we get everything's right in front of us. We're turning the corner. We're savages in the box. We need that aggressive manager.
Yeah, but he's never been that manager, so it's like asking someone to change up their whole lifestyle after like 6-7 years. It's not going to happen. The Yankees are perfectly comfortable with the manager that Aaron Boone is, so I don't know why people are like demanding that he change his ways for the second half. He hasn't done it before, and he's not going to do it now. The players need to play better. It's as simple as that. We don't need too much of a change from the manager. Yeah, hold people accountable, sure, but we've been asking him to do that since 2018. So I don't know why we're expecting anything different at this point. And we need players to step up. I don't care that DJ LeMahieu's glove has been okay. The dude can hit somewhat respectable numbers, and no one will care what you're doing. But he's been terrible. Gleyber Torres overall has been really bad. His numbers haven't been good at all, except for like the recent hot streak he had. These are key players that have not performed well. Look at Verdugo over the last month. He's been terrible. Defensively, great, yeah, but again, just like I said with DJ, his bat has not been good enough, and it's costing us games. A lot of the reasons the Yankees are losing during this stretch has been because of the offense, not because of their defense or their pitch. Well, sometimes the pitching, but when you can't score more than 2-3 runs a game, it doesn't matter how many runs you give up. So asking the manager to change his entire way when a good chunk of his team is underperforming, that's not completely fair to the manager. Not to excuse him completely, because he's definitely part of this, but we're asking Aaron Boone to do something differently since 2018, and yet it's not going to happen because the organization doesn't need him to do that. They don't want him to do that. So I don't want to spend another half a season talking about Aaron Boone holding people accountable, because it's not going to change. What he does in the dugout has gotten him a lot of respect amongst the players and the organization. Not the fans, but it doesn't really matter what we think necessarily. If Aaron Judge is going to give him that vote of confidence, then guess what? What Aaron Judge says is going to go over what any fan's going to say. So I'm just hoping the players step up, because then guess what? Remember the first half? We didn't speak about Aaron Boone. We were giving him 10s across the board, 9s, 8s. It didn't matter. So if the players are performing well, Aaron Boone can only do so much. It's going to affect the game, a bullpen move here and there. But right now, he's kind of playing with the hand he's been dealt. He's down a very good amount of players. Stanton's out. His backup is hurt. Any guys that could potentially come up, with the exception of Vivas, I won't excuse them for how they treated him, but there isn't really a guy in the pipeline that, besides Neely, that's ready to come up right now. Neely and Vivas that would really bring a jolt to this team. So he's kind of playing with the hand he's been dealt, and it wasn't his fault Clay Holmes blew the game. I don't want to hear that. Why do you blame the guy for putting in his closer? That's his closer for a reason. So I just don't want to spend another half a season doing that. If they give him a good deadline and they still crap the bed, then you could start to question, is it the manager? I do think a change was needed long ago, but hey, they like Aaron Boone, so we just got to deal with it and hope that the team can just turn things around, because the talent's there. They're going to get players back. A lot of players are coming back from injury. Nick Birdie's feeling good. I think he said on Twitter he's starting to throw again. He's starting to feel like himself. We're going to get key guys back like Stanton. We're going to get Dominguez back at some point this year. And there's the trade deadline. So we just got to hope that these guys we have now and the guys we have coming back and the guys we eventually bring in just bring this team back to where they need to be.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this as a big Boone supporter. I'm not a big fan of the guy. I don't hate the guy like some fans do. But Rob, I've brought this up. I believe that Boone, when he's allowed to manage his way, I think those are those stretches where they've been successful. He was keeping a steady lineup to start the season off. And everybody had a consistent role. And I think that's what goes away because they're getting calls from within the office. Why isn't this guy playing more? Why isn't that guy playing? So now he's got to play that jumble game with the lineup, and that throws everybody off their routine. We always say athletes are creatures of habit. And I think when they're allowed to stay within their habits, you do see the success of it. And every time a player goes into a slump, we want to trade him. We're not even giving them a chance to self-correct. Think of all the vitriol that Volpe's getting. I think that this kid is being treated unfairly. Is he adjusting on his own? Maybe not. And I think that Rousing is working with him. I saw a clip that they were talking about on the MLB network before the break about the movement of his footing, how he's almost stepping into the bucket, as they used to say, describe it to us in Little League. If you step out of the batter's box, you're going to step in the bucket. And it seems like that's what he's doing, and nobody's correcting it. And sometimes you get into those routines and you get into those movements where it becomes natural, and you have to reteach yourself how to put your footing. That's where the coaches come into play. That's where Boone has an issue. He's not helping them correct. He can't be the only one that fixes them now.
Right, there's only so much you can do when you're forced to play Trent Grisham every day, and you're kind of being hamstrung. I mean, I don't know what goes on in Aaron Boone's head. I don't think a lot of people do. People might try to guess and think that they know what's going on in the manager's head, but they don't. That's the reality of it. So it's quite possible that it was up to the organization to say, well, we're going to call up Vivas just for an extra body. Because for Aaron Boone to say he didn't know what his role was going to be, I doubt that there was much communication there. But I don't know if you think Aaron Boone's like the guy's a baseball player. He's been around baseball his whole life. Do you really think that he's sitting there like DJ LeMahieu is the best option for this team? I don't think that's the case. I really think it's an organizational thing that are like, he's getting $15 million. They got to play him. They did the same thing with Hicks. They gave him a lot of playing time before they just cut him. And it was very sudden when they cut him. And they did the same thing with Donaldson when they cut him because he was still getting a ton of playing time. So it's weird how they do these things. I don't know if they're going to give it another couple of weeks. And if he's still this bad by August 1st, maybe then they just decide to say enough is enough. But they've done this before with these aging veterans, these declining veterans. Hopefully DJ can pick it up and we won't have to worry about a cut because I don't want to see that be the case. I do like DJ LeMahieu. I'm just sick of him playing every day. I'm not going to go back from what I said years ago when we signed him, but there are changes that can be made to make this team better. They didn't do a single thing during the break. I'm hoping that they do something before first pitch tonight, but blaming everything on the manager just seems like a cop-out when there's so many bad players that are underperforming right now. Like, again, I mentioned the three that are getting paid a lot of money combined. That's Glaber, DJ, and Verdugo, all underperforming. The catchers, to a degree, most of the time, they've been underperforming. You look at Jahmai Jones getting a lot of playing time. Trent Grisham replacing Stanton. That's a big loss in the lineup, and hoping that Grisham can give him something close to what Stanton's going to give you. It's just not fair to Grisham. He's not that player. And then there's the bullpen. A lot of guys got hurt. A lot of guys have stunk up the joint lately. The all-star Clay Holmes being one of them, Tommy Kahnle being another. Hamilton's hurt. Birdie got hurt. F. Ross is still working his way back. So there's just so much that's been going on. It all seemed to happen in the same span when the team started to struggle. Juan Soto was dealing with the forearm, then it was his elbow, then it was his hand. So many things seem to happen at once, and that's when the Yankees fall apart. But it's the easy thing to do, be like, it's Aaron Boone's fault. It's part of it, for sure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not absolving him of all the blame here, but the easy thing is to just point the finger at the manager. But after 8 years, I think we should know that they're not going to make a change unless it's absolutely necessary. If they completely collapse this second half, which I don't think they will, then we'll probably see a change. But if they win 90 some odd games again, go to the playoffs, and even go to the ALCS, I don't think we're seeing a change in manager after that.
It's. I like the phrase I like the term that you used. I do think putting everything on Boone is a cop out. Because he's the boss while the game's being played. He's the one that he's the head of the table. A little wrestling reference for you. It's he's the one that's going to absorb. He's the one that's got to sit in front of the writers and all of us and explain what's going on. So, being he's the figurehead, it's all the frustration is going to be aimed at him. But how about these? I was leading into it with Volpe. How about these guys start working on themselves? Make your own adjustments. Don't wait for the coaching. Just because they're not saying anything doesn't mean that nothing's wrong. Maybe they're just bad at, maybe they are that bad at pointing things out because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in the way things go these days. It's if we destroy it, if we keep critiquing them, we're going to kill their confidence and they'll never get better. But they have to get better. Somebody's got to be like, you know what? I don't care. Here's a box of tissues. I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. And you'll thank me for it later. But you suck right now. Like, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And we do have a couple of people that came into the chat. We want to say hello to John, the Beagle Dad. What's going on, John? I know I saw NFE in the chat on the Strike Zone. If you have not subscribed to his channel, go over and do so. He will be doing his pregame show later this afternoon. So definitely tune into that. And LA Yankee King, it is good to see you coming back into the chat. We do miss you, bro. While we do have we have a lot of time to talk about various topics. I saw yesterday on a headline that there is interest, or it was circulated, that Tampa's willing to trade a couple of pieces. And one of them that kind of caught my eye was Isaiah Paredes. Now, I am not a big fan of interdivision trades. I know they happen. Look, I know there's a lot of thought that, look, I'm not going to worry about who they get. I'm more worried about who I get. But when you're looking at this trade deadline, it's very thin. Are you comfortable with the way that we protect our prospects? Where's the comfort level of a divisional trade this year?
I'll take any help we can possibly get. I don't care if it came from Boston. We did a trade with Boston this offseason.
Yeah.
So I couldn't care less who we trade guys to. If a player can help us, and Paredes would be one of those players, absolutely I would take him. Yandy Diaz is another guy that got brought up in that same conversation. I think there's another couple of guys that Tampa Bay might look to move. So if the guy can come in here and help, then I would be all in on a trade to get that kind of a player. If that's the best player on the market, Paredes is, I think, 25, 26. He's a good player. He's a really good player, and he would be here for the next 4 or 5 years, I think. Yeah. I got to look up his contract in terms of control, but the cost is going to be high. if they're trading a 25-year-old very talented player, he was like a 30 home run guy last year, so and I think he's at 16 now, 15. I got to look up those numbers. I'm going to do that while I'm talking, but um, that's a good player. And if he's on the market, you're going to have to give to get. I would be willing to move certain prospects. I don't know who the Yankees are willing to move, but that's the question the Yankees are going to have to figure out, not
Yeah,
us. We can have our untouchables, but the Yankees are going to have their own list. But if he's on the market, I wouldn't care about making a trade with division rival. That guy kicks our ass a lot, so I would be more than welcome. Thank you, NFE. 25 and is a free agent in 2029. Are you kidding me? Go get that guy.
that's why his name stood out to me. His numbers
28.
this year, he's got a 2.5 WAR for this season. 329 at bats. He's got 86 hits, 15 home runs, and a 2.61 batting average. Okay. He plays first, second, and third. Go get that guy, please. Go get him. I know it's Tampa. We might trade somebody that might bite us in the ass. But if we solidify, one of the things I pointed out on Wednesday, the one thing that I want, and I put it in the chat with on the strike zone yesterday, they need to secure the infield defense because of the structure of our bullpen. We don't have the swing and miss guys. You need to secure and tighten up your defense. Paredes is a player that could do that.
Yep.
He's got a little pop in the bat. And those are the guys that really, I think, would really, because it's not also the confidence in the players in themselves. You have to have confidence in your teammates. And when you have to throw a pitch and you're like, I know I can get this ground ball, but are they going to get the out? And that messes with the pitching, the bullpen's heads. Because they can't have hard contact. They can't have soft contact because we keep making errors on everything. So, because if it wasn't for the errors, the elongated innings from Holmes may not seem as detrimental. Okay? And I'm not saying that this is going to relieve Holmes of any of the criticism. Believe me, Donald's hearing me talk about him and he's rolling in the hotel room. Well, losing his mind. But if they are going to, and I know, Mr. Barros, we do need a closer. And the one bullpen piece you want as a swing and miss guy is your closer. But we don't have that right now. Can that change in the next week or so? Absolutely. But I think if you get a defensive guy that's got a good bat that can play multiple positions in the infield soundly, sometimes the most important trades for our success will hurt the depth. I've said that since Rob's heard me say that for 5 years now. The best trades hurt. You got to deal with it.
Yeah, and nobody really knows what it's going to cost. Because some people have said, oh, they're going to want Jones or they're going to want Dominguez. They like Arias and Lombard. I'm going to give them up for a guy like Paredes. I'm sorry. I love Arias. I think he's got all the potential in the world. Same thing about Lombard. But these are 18, 19-year-old kids. Paredes is a 25-year-old proven player now. And it's not like he's going to be gone after this year. You're going to get him for another 3 years after this. You'll get him for the rest of 2024, all of 25, 26, 27. And then I think NFE corrected it. He said 29, but he corrected it to 28. So at the very least, you're getting 3.5 years of a player who is yet to really hit his prime. So if that's the guy to go get, then you're going to have to pay a hefty price to get him. Now, I don't know what that price is. Anyone can guess, but the Rays also have left-handed relief pitching that we can use. Clevenger's a guy that in their bullpen strikes some guys out. Lefty, throws hard. We can certainly use that. So there's a trade that can be made between the Yankees and Rays. I think they should explore it. If that trade is between the Yankees and the Marlins, if it involves Chisholm and Tanner Scott or Andrew Nardi, then go do it. So the good thing is there are teams out there that they can call to try to pull off maybe one big deal that solves a few of their needs. Because right now they need a third baseman, they need a relief pitcher or two. I don't know if they're going to go get a closer. If the Cardinals fall out of it by the deadline, which I don't think they are, because if I'm not mistaken, they're still a playoff team. Yeah, they're second in the wild card. I would say Helsley would be the guy that I target, but I don't think that the Cardinals are going to be selling. So you have a pretty slim list of teams: the Marlins, the White Sox. Now Tampa Bay apparently is willing to listen, as they always are, and you go from there. Let's see if we can attack three needs, or at least two needs with one trade. If you can get Clevenger and Paredes, great, go do it. That solves two needs right there, and then you can maybe try to call up Miami to get Tanner Scott, or go try to get a relief pitcher like a Kopech just to get another arm in there. And you won't have to make four different trades like we did 2 years ago. Start with Arias and Hampton. I'd be fine with that for a Paredes. I would.
Yeah.
I like those players, but at some point you're going to have to trade somebody if you're not going to use everybody. And I know there's a lot of chatter around Crochet and that the White Sox would want Spencer Jones. I don't know if the Yankees are going to trade Spencer Jones. I really don't. They didn't do it for Dylan Cease. I don't think they do it for Crochet.
Yeah. They didn't do it for Luis Castillo.
Right.
They held on to that.
No,
that
Castillo. Yeah, that was Dominguez. And Castillo at the time was really good. But Dylan Cease is a better pitcher than Crochet was. I mean, Crochet was a relief pitcher going into the season. So I don't know if you want to make that much of a push for him just yet, but he is really good, and someone's going to go get him, and they're going to have to pay a hefty price to get him. I don't know if that team's going to be the Yankees. I doubt that team's going to be the Yankees. So look to get relief pitching, look to solidify third base, call up Yorbit Vivas, for God's sakes, call up Jack Neely, and we can do that mix of relying on the system and using that same system to upgrade the team we have now. There's ways to do it, whether it's one big trade with a team like Tampa Bay or Miami, or if it's a couple of little trades here and there. There are things that can be done to upgrade this team.
Because I think with this whole thing with Tampa Bay, and I just looked it up also real quick, because Paredes is also arbitration eligible in 25. The other guy that was on that list, that I just remembered, was a Rosarina, because he's going to be due to get paid, and they don't pay. But I think Paredes actually fits a better need, because we don't need an outfielder. We need infield help. So that's why Paredes is the one that really stuck in my head, and I really like that guy. And I know he's not that superstar, but that's fine. I said it. We don't need an all-star and a Hall of Famer at every freaking position. We just need players that can play. Not everybody's going to rise above the tides. Some players are just going to ride the wave and not drown. That's what we need right now, because this team is on the verge of drowning. Especially, I think Torres right now is completely underwater. He's got no floaties, no swimmies, however you phrase it, where you come from. But I think because all the focus, like NFT's putting in there, with Crochet going to the Dodgers, Orioles, or the Padres, everybody's focused on Tanner Scott and Crochet, Screwball. Now's the time to swoop in and get the guy that nobody's talking about yet.
And that's when the Yankees kind of strike, because no one saw that White Sox trade coming back in 2017. Remember when that just came out of nowhere? That was before the Sonny Gray trade, because all the rumors are the Yankees are in on Sonny Gray and Verlander potentially, and nobody saw that Chicago trade coming. And that was a really good trade, because I did not like Todd Frazier, and it mostly is because of that goddamn picture of him and Jeter. But he did help the team in that postseason run, and getting Canely and Robertson that year was absolutely necessary, because they made that bullpen so good. And we gave up two of our top prospects in that trade at the time. They were Ian Clarkin and Blake Rutherford. So, and I think Tito Polo was another guy in that trade, and I believe Clippard was there. I think that was the 4-for-3 swap. Two of our top prospects were gone, and it filled three different needs on the team or technically two bullpen arms and a third baseman. You can do something similar and still have ammo to go make another trade if necessary. But if let's just say we got Clevenger and Paredes from the Rays, all that's really, and the Rizzo trade, you're right, Li. That Rizzo trade
Good
came out of
call.
nowhere as well. No one saw that coming. So that's when the Yankees strike, is when they're going away from the players that everybody wants. Look, if Skubal was available, I would want the dude on the team in a heartbeat. He's probably the Cy Young runner-up or front runner right now. I don't know why Detroit would trade him, because they're not too far under 500. That's a team that can potentially build into a playoff contender the next year or so, especially with the expanded playoff. They should swoop in and try to see if they can make a deal with Tampa Bay, and then that would give them another couple of weeks to go and make another move if necessary. Because if you get a third baseman and you get a relief pitcher, all that's really needed, because Ben Rice ain't going anywhere. All that's really needed is to get some guys healthy and maybe add another bullpen arm. I don't think they're going to go and get a closer, because the closer's not out there. Everyone wants Tanner Scott, so you're going to have to blow other teams' offers out of the water. They're not going to be able to compete with Baltimore for a guy like Crochet, because if they want him, they can go get him. Same with the Dodgers. I don't know if we can compete with those teams for Crochet. So go call up Tampa. They've made trades before. So, I mean, it wouldn't be we made two, remember 2018, we made two division trades to get Happ and Britton from Toronto and Baltimore. It would not bother me at all if we had to make an in-division trade. And that might be the best move to make.
Yeah, I want to pull up this one comment. We got a couple people jump into the chat. Just want to say what's going on, Frederick. So you pop in, and then there was somebody else. I'm going. Oh, James Beal. Hope you're still with us, hanging out. But there's also on the Facebook end, Donald Berger. What's going on? Welcome to the Pitchlight Chronicles chat. Yeah, I hope you are if you're here, because can we trade Holmes? I don't think Holmes is a tradable player, only because after this year he's gone anyway. And I think what the Yankees can do is go get, if they're able to, like Rob, like a Clevenger, and put him in that role, along with some infield help. I think that can put him into the 8th inning role, where he might just feel a little more relaxed. And then just at the end of the year, they're gonna walk away from him. They're gonna let him go somewhere else. So there are also, out of 30 teams in baseball, 20 of them right now can make the playoffs. So the trade deadline, you're going to have to overpay, or oversell your players. I think this is going to be one of those, we're going to see trades going, who approved that? And we're just going to be shocked at some of the trades that are made, players that are moved, and who they got for. I think we're in for one of those years. What's going on, Razio? But, as far as with the market, we've been saying, I'll let Rob chime in a second, it's going to be thin. Don't think we're going to be able to address every issue, because there are not a lot of teams that are going to be full sellers.
Right, the playoff race is completely jumbled up, especially in the NL, and we've said that every day almost since June. So I don't know how much that's going to change in another 2 weeks, because the deadline's coming up, and the AL, the top 9 teams are separated by 9 games, in that wild card at least. I don't think Toronto's going to be involved in the playoff race, but Texas could catch fire. They've got a really good team. Detroit has been pretty solid all season, so it wouldn't surprise me. I think they won 8. They won 8 out of their last 10. Yeah, Houston's on fire, so they're not selling. Tampa Bay's still alive, so I don't know why they'd be selling. But then again, it's Tampa Bay, so they don't do anything that makes sense. And then there's the National League. Washington's the 10th team in the wild card race, and they're only 6 games out.
It's tight.
It's a very tight race. Anything can possibly happen. So your most likely option is try to strike now while Tampa Bay, before they can catch fire against you. But I don't think that's not like they're gonna make a trade today. But I'm saying if
Yeah,
we win this series, which is a 4 game set, right?
yeah.
Let's say we take three. Do does Tampa Bay start to be like, okay, maybe we got to start
Yeah,
selling?
I think so because I don't think it's so much where they are in the standings. Their thing is always their finances. They don't like giving out the contracts. They don't, we've seen them do this a lot. When players get to when they get the temperature of the room that the player is going to get a high arbitration number, they move on. And they'll just keep the salary down. That's why I think if you're able to get somebody that at the end of next season is going to be arbitration eligible, it's going to be expensive. But now I can't get his name out of my head. Isaiah Paredes. It's such a good fit. But they got to strike now. That's why they have to win the series against Tampa. They had to take 3 out of 4. Put it in their heads that they're not going to contend because that'll kind of twist their arm a little bit to negotiate.
And nothing's really gonna happen. What's up, Dev? Nothing's gonna probably happen until like the week before the deadline anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I just again, the Yankees are going to have to take this next week and a half to really figure out if anyone is considered untouchable. If they are, who are those players, and go from there. But if we do make a trade, it's going to be something that nobody really sees coming. The only player that I can see us getting that would be a guy that's on everybody's radar is Tanner Scott. That
Yeah.
would not shock me in the least if they made that trade. But do they try to get Chisholm as well? Because he's been linked to the Yankees and Mariners. Because the Mariners desperately need offense, and they're in first place in that division, but they need offense big time. So there's another team that could be in play for a guy like Paredes. So the Yankees might have competition for him. That's why they need to do something fast. They don't necessarily have to wait until the deadline, but I'm not saying they have to go make a trade today. They just have to really be quicker than the other teams if they want to get this over with, because I would much rather go into the deadline not having to do too much. I know we all want an exciting day to follow the trades, but it hasn't really been as excited as it once was, and that's
No.
because everyone's really competing right now. So we might have like 20 some odd teams trying to call up Miami at the same time on the day of the deadline if they don't trade Tanner Scott. You might have to make a move sooner than later just to make sure you're not trying to compete with another 60-70% of the league.
Yeah, and that's where the urgency comes in. That's Cashman's urgency. Don't wait until the 13th hour to try to pull a move out of your ass. Because at that point, it's too late. If you wait for the deadline day, you're really putting your team behind the 8 ball. Because like you said, Rob, there's gonna be 20 other teams calling for that one player. And it's really just gonna suck. What's going on, Mello? Baltimore was awesome. I really enjoyed that stadium. The crowd was really nice. I talked to a lot of different people. Yeah, it was very, very welcoming. I would definitely go back. I would go back to Baltimore for a game anytime. I really did enjoy it. Thanks for asking. Um, and Ken's adding that Tampa Bay's farm system is strong with middle infielders. One top, just pull this up. One top 10 outfield prospect. They are extremely weak on the mound. A pretty trade would probably cost several top pitching prospects. Okay. Okay. Who do they
Well,
want?
let me ask you this: would you be willing to give up Spencer Jones for him?
Would I give up Spencer Jones? No. I don't think I do not. Joseph
See,
Dominguez.
because you're saying go get this guy, but immediately you're
All
saying
right, you
no when
got
the
me on
name
that one.
Spencer Jones comes into the conversation. I would do it, and I know people are gonna call me crazy for that. Oh, he's untouchable. You can't trade Spencer Jones. Why can't you?
Because I don't know what my outfield future is for next year. And I know it's about this year right now. But Jones and Dominguez are supposed to replace Verdugo. It's not like we were able to. We don't know. We as optimism as I am that Soto's coming back. You still don't know. So we could either have Jones or Dominguez with Judge and Soto, or we'll have Dominguez, Jones, and Judge in the outfield
How
for
do you know
next year.
Jones will be ready next year?
I don't.
Right, so you're
So
already putting pressure
maybe,
on the kid
yeah.
before
So
he's
maybe
even
I
taken an at bat in AAA. He hasn't even taken. He's barely taken enough bats in AA, and the pressure's already on him to potentially replace Juan Soto. I'm not trying to downplay Spencer Jones in the
no no
slightest.
no. I know I know what you're saying.
I
You're
think
not
he's
wrong.
gonna be very good. But you're talking about a 25-year-old that's already proven it at the major league level. If you can give up Jones and Hampton and maybe like another pitcher, we have so many, and we just drafted like 150 pitchers this past draft anyway. If we can give up like two pitchers and Jones for Paredes and Clevenger, I'm sorry, I'm pulling the trigger on that trade every single time. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I would love to get better right now to win a championship. And I would hate to have to face Spencer Jones every day in a couple of years when Tampa Bay eventually calls him up. But if we won the World Series and Paredes was a big part of that, do you think anyone's going to really care that Spencer Jones is no longer here?
I see that's a different way to look at it. And you know what? If I'm gonna want him that bad, I haven't wanted. The more I woke up today, really looking at for a Paredes deal. I know they need pitching depth. If it's gonna take, maybe you give them. I don't know what the temperature is on Pereira. If he's where he's at with his development. I don't even know if he's on the IL or not.
He's hurt. Yeah, he's out for the year. You got to get Tommy
He's out
John.
for the year. All right, so he's off the list. Because I'm like, there's no room for him. They might as well just throw him in, on the top of a pile for a trade. What about if you throw it because they need the pitching? What about if you give up like Marinaccio, Hampton, and a Poteet?
Is Spencer Jones in that trade?
No,
Marinaccio, Hampton, and Poteet for Paredes?
because that's the starting point.
This is
I think
MLB the
Poteet's
show?
got high. I think Poteet's got a very high upside.
He's like 30. The Rays are going to want pitching prospects. They're not going to want a 30-year-old that's dealing with injuries. I mean, you got to give to get. Exactly. Tampa would laugh at that.
Yeah, you know what? You're gonna have to throw Jones in that.
If you give up Jones or if you go with Pereira and then give up like four other prospects, you might entice them. But they're going to want they're going to want the guy that's supposed to be the sure thing. So
you're gonna have to give up Jones. I'm trying to go every way around it, but I don't think we're gonna have a choice.
Exactly. So I'm not. Again, I understand that. And Frank, you bring up a good point. You can draft anyone if any of them are good. But one thing, Frank, the Yankees have developed pitching in the minor leagues. Now, hear me out. They're not necessarily. I'm not saying they're all going to be studs in the majors. But what the Yankees have been doing is they draft these guys, and they end up being really good for whatever reason in the minor leagues, and they turn them into trade chips. And the Yankees just keep recycling the same pattern year after year after year. So that system is loaded with pitchers that are outside of the top 30 or even in the top 30 that are still a couple of years away from actually developing into something better than what they already are. So I'm not worried about if they had to trade Hampton and, let's say, even a Will Warren. If that was the package, Warren, Hampton, and Jones. I know people are going to hear those names and go, whoa, but they have so many pitchers in that system that are under the radar right now, like Bailey Dees and Ben Shields, that within the next year could take up those spots that are gone from Hampton and Warren. That's the way the Yankees minor league system has been working. So I think that they're going to have to again, any trade for a good player is a give to get. It's a give to get. You're not going to get away with Poteet and Marinaccio. Marinacio's 27, who's been sent down multiple times this
Yeah, I
year.
always think they're
Poteet's
younger than they are. I don't know
yeah,
why.
and it's again, Frank, but Paredes is not a Hall of Fame player, but he's also 25 under team control, and he's been very good the last 2 years, and he's having another good season. You're not going to get him for some relief pitchers and one pitching prospect. It's going to be a hefty price to pay.
No, and the problem with giving up Dominguez, Mr. Barrows, over rather than Jones, because we've seen a healthy Dominguez be exceptional on the major league level. So, you know what? I did. I can't. I got to rewind it and not be a hypocrite about it. I said, sometimes the best trades hurt. Um, I think if you give up Jones and Hampton, I think they listen.
Yeah, Marinaccio's 29. So, yeah, I mean, I wish Marinaccio was like an up and
I thought
coming
he was
pitching
younger.
prospect.
That was my mistake. I thought he was early 20s.
Any trade they make is going to hurt. And even if they made a trade, let's say if Rengifo got healthy, because a lot of people are talking about Estevez, their closer in LA, that would be a good get. It's going to cost you a little bit. It won't cost you as much as that Tampa Bay trade would. You could probably keep Spencer Jones if you got Rengifo and Estevez. So there's another option right there. So there's options out there, but the Yankees are going to have to really figure out who's untouchable, who isn't untouchable, who are we willing to give up now. And I think it was Ken that brought it up earlier. If you show Soto that you're serious about this, he's going to want to stay. You got everything they do between now and October is got to be to entice Juan Soto to stay, because he can still, even if we don't win the World Series, if they show that they've got a good enough team, he's going to want to be here, and they have to make sure he's here, because there's not a single prospect coming up. There's not a single free agent that we can go get. Not a single trade that we can make, unless it was for Ohtani, and guess what? That ain't happening. There's not a single bat out there or that's going to replace what Juan Soto can give you. This is a generational player. It's a generational duo we have, and they got to stay together. So they have to show Soto they're serious about this thing, and they want to keep him here. Yeah. And Paredes would help with the financials because he's not going to be owed that much money. So
no, it does. It also does help the financial situation, because you can address issues without having to go through free agency in the offseason. I just also want to I trip over my tongue for a second. Say hi, Savino. How's everything going? And Jared, good morning to you as well. You're late. So hope everything's good by you, Jared. I know yesterday you were talking about you were affected by the storms. So hopefully everything's going well for you. But no, it's going to be a pain. It's going to be a pain. It's going to be a difficult trade season. It's going to be difficult to make a deal. And because the market is going to be tight, it's going to be an expensive trade deadline. I got to put some clarity on it. It's going to be a painful trade deadline. We're going to have to give up a player that I just did it myself. Trying not to give up Jones, but it's not possible. It's not.
Well, there's trades they can make that don't have to involve Spencer Jones.
I'm not giving him up for Tanner Scott, but
right, because Estevez and Scott are both rentals. So again, if Rengifo and Estevez combination wouldn't cost you that much, and you'd still have plenty to go and get another relief pitcher if you needed to. So that might be the route they take. Maybe they make 2 or 3 smaller trades. They don't have to give up top prospects. They trade from the Rule 5 group they have, and they rely and they use the injury return thing. Who was that there? Raziel just brought it up. Like, we got Clark Schmidt coming back. They got so-and-so coming back. That's like making a trade. He will do that. He will absolutely do that, but you can still use that excuse and make some trades. And yeah, what and Jared, they could trade Glaber if they got Paredes. They could and called up Vivas. They could trade Glaber and try to get a couple of pieces. They can get something for Glaber Torres. They got something for Joey Gallo. They thought they would never get anything for Gallo. They did. It's possible to trade him. I don't know if they trade for Dugo, not with the question marks surrounding Stanton. Obviously, he's just a DH. And also, when is Dominguez coming back? So I don't think Verdugo is going anywhere, but someone would trade for Glaber Torres, Raziel. You wouldn't get a lot for him, but you would get something for him. We got something for Joey Gallo, and his numbers were absolutely terrible when we traded him. You would get something for Glaber Torres.
Yeah. I think the word would be it's more improbable that Torres goes, but nothing's impossible. And I think Gallo's a great example of it. Nobody thought anything. We were like, oh, Frank was stuck with this guy. We said there was no way on earth that they were gonna cut Donaldson because they wanted him so badly. They did. When their backs against the wall.
That's not true, Raziel. I'm sorry. That everyone trades for rentals. It's like the most sought after trade pieces at the deadline every year. Everybody wants Tanner Scott. He's a rental. Everybody wants him. Everyone in contention at least is going to want him. Some teams are going to want Glaber Torres. There's teams that need bats that might be like, well, we're not going to give up premium prospect costs for Jazz Chisholm, but Glaber Torres, he's not great this year, but I'm telling you, Raziel, no, they said the same goddamn thing about Gallo. You wouldn't get a substantial return, but you would get something for Glaber Torres. A team like Seattle that's desperate for bats might be like, okay, here's a couple of maybe a lower tier pitcher or two for Glaber. They might have to because they need the bats so badly. I'm just saying teams do it, and some players get traded when no one thinks that they would.
No, it's funny you brought up Seattle because that's who I was thinking. Call Seattle. They need the infield help, and they need the bat. Say you get a couple of 2 single A pitches. We've seen what this pitching staff can do with players that we've never heard of. Despite all the bullshit we get, look at we were all laughing at the Tonkin trade. Look at him. So you never know what's going to happen once they get that change of scenery. They might, you might have a team that looks at Torres that way. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed that somebody's going to want him, but it's not impossible. Anything is possible.
And FJ, I think so. I think they're going to trade a couple. I'm not saying they're going to trade 5 pitchers, but they might. Because they gave away so many pitchers this past offseason and in the Rule 5. So they could trade one or 2 of those, the pitchers they drafted, probably not. But, and Seattle's going to want these guys that we want too. But if we swooped in and got them before they could, Seattle's options might be limited as well.
Why is he getting rid of my guy? You trying to piss me off, L.I.?
I mean, he's got a good point though, because Seattle does have a decent system. They can make that kind of move. There's competition all over the league for good players, and that's just the fact of it. So I do think the Yankees drafted pitching so heavily because they plan on moving some guys, and they're going to probably lose guys in the Rule 5 anyway, and this offseason. So, hey, I like Chase Hampton. I like Will Warren. I like a lot of our pitching prospects, but when was the last pitch? Exactly. I like winning more. It could be a crazy one. It could be a dud. I'm hoping it's a really good deadline because there are options out there. Cashman's going to have to go outside the box and make a move that none of us really see coming. That's when he's kind of at his best. So I think Cashman had his best offseason in a very long time. There isn't much that he did that I don't think there wasn't a single move that he made that I didn't like. I even liked the Ferguson trade. I know it turned out terribly, but at the time it was a steal. It should have been a steal. It should have been the best move you could make. A proven relief pitcher for a guy that you picked up off of waivers. Good move. Didn't work out that way. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he knows what he's doing here. He knows what holes the team has. Let's see if he can correct them.
Yep. And believe me, we still have a lot of bullets, left for the deadline. We didn't completely unload this offseason. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you got to make a deal for this, for this, for that. Like you have to save, you have to keep some of your stock for the deadline for the season. You can't just make every move because you never know what you're going to need during the season, as we're seeing now. So the Yankees, they may not have the best, they might not have the top farm system. I don't think they can compete with the farm system like Seattle and Baltimore. I'm not saying that. But we've seen year in, year out, they always ask for us. They beg for our guys. They always ask about our guys. They're always calling Cashman about a player. Sometimes Cashman makes the wrong decision and not let go, but they do make the call. So I do think a move will be made.
They might either make one big move or
a couple small.
Yeah, like I think someone had an article that they expect the Yankees to make 4 trades again. I don't think they need to because it just feels like you're asking them to do too much, and it didn't work last time. They got Benintendi, then it was Montas, and it was Efros, and then it was there was one other trade that the Bader for Montgomery trade, and it didn't work. I don't know if they're going to make 4 trades again, but if they make 2, one big one and one that gets you like another relief pitcher, that might be all they need to do.
Yeah, and another good point by Ken. Dodgers spent $1.3 billion in free agency, and they still have holes to fill. It's you can't solve every problem all at once. It just doesn't work. That's like trying to hit a 5-run homer. It's not. It's not going to happen. It's impossible because baseball is it's a grind of a season. It's a grinding sport. You're going to have players go down. You're going to have movement on the roster. It's inevitable. What you as a fan, what you need to hope for is that you have a management team in place that knows how to aggressively address the situations when needed, and knowing when to just kind of small ball it with a lower key guy. That's kind of that diamond in the rough, and the differentiating beyond that is tricky. I don't think Cashman's in as much as we say he's a lifetime GM. He's the adopted Steinbrenner. He hasn't. There's a reason why we have never had a losing season in how many years now? How many decades now? So Cashman has been a big part of that. And I know it's, a winning season doesn't get you a parade, but there are a lot of fan base. Could you imagine if we had those bottom years like Baltimore did to be where they are now? We'd be losing our minds. We'd probably even stop watching the game. We'd be so pissed off. So just sit back and cross your fingers that there's a move that happens that you like. Let's cross our fingers that they start the season off the way that we like, and just enjoy it. Before you know it, it's the off season, and we're screaming for baseball to come back. Thoughts on Volpe? I think he's going to be fine. I really do. I'm not worried about Volpe.
He's not going to be Gunnar Henderson. He's not going to be Bobby Witt Jr. like people want him to be, but we saw for 2 months this season what he can be, and that's just a good, very, very solid, even above average player. He's a good defender. He's the shortstop of the future. He ain't going to second base. He's not moving anywhere. Yeah. He's the shortstop. He just needs to be more consistent. That's it. He just needs to find consistency, find a spot in the lineup that suits him, and I'm guessing that's going to be somewhere between 6 and 9. because that's where he was early in the year. And then he ended up going to lead off. He struggled, then he got hot. Then he struggled again, lost his spot. They need to find out what was working for him the first 2 months and get back to that. And I think he's going to be just fine. He's not going to be Gunner. He's not going to be Bobby Witt, and that's perfectly fine. They don't need him to be. He just needs to be better at the plate because his glove is there. His glove is there. I just think when he starts to struggle, his issue seems to be he goes back to that uppercut swing. And like you mentioned earlier, the bucket stuff that you were talking about. So it's all good. It's all good points. Everything that when you see him struggling, you see him reverting back to the same stuff that was getting him into trouble last year when he was just simply a home run on occasion kind of guy. This year he hasn't had any power at all, and it seems like that because of that, he's trying to do that while he's slumping. He's trying to hit a home run to get out of it. We don't need him to do that. Be that doubles guy that he was earlier in the year, that gap-to-gap hitter. How many times did he start off an inning with a triple? Like, it seemed like he was getting a triple every other series, it seems. So I just don't want him to get in his head too much because he's only 22, 23 years old. There's still plenty of time.
No, I don't know if he's overrated, but he was overhyped, though. That we because as Yankee fans, here's where we're at fault for the players' successes or failures. Holmes is not going to be Mariano. Volpe is not going to be Jeter. Wells is not going to be Posada. You can't replace. You can learn from your past, but you can't repeat it all the time. They have to figure out, as fans, we have to figure out how to just accept the players that they are. Not accept the losing part of it or the mistakes or the growth. But look at what we just had a quick conversation about it today, and we've had it over and over again. Well, you can't get rid of this guy, you can't get rid of that guy, But when they get when they get their chance, and it takes them a little while, not everybody's going to be, an all-star as a rookie. I mean, be realistic. I know you expect the best, as do I. But you got to be real at the same time. These players are not going to come up and be Hall of Famers right away. They're not even going to be all-stars right away. You got to give them time. That's the problem. We're so desperate when we lost our patience. We want immediate results. It doesn't matter. Well, I don't care that he's only 20 years old. He should be the best player on the field. Come on now.
And another thing is, the thing that Volpe has going for him is we've already seen it this year, not that long ago, what he can be. He was very good for the first 2 months of the season. Like, if you look at his splits in April and May, they were great numbers. He looked like he was on pace to be an all-star this year, at least close to it. But that final month really hurt him. And his numbers have plummeted. I'm not going to excuse it. His numbers absolutely plummeted. He's on a very long, very tough stretch right now. But to take away what he did those first 2 months and be like, oh, he's a bust, he's a bum, he's overrated, blah, 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 simply because of one bad month, it's not fair to what he was able to do those first 2 months. And I do agree with you, Li. Moving him up that early screwed him over because he should have never moved. And I know he found success later on at the leadoff spot, but I said it once they did it. I think it's too early. I said it early in the season. If he starts hitting in the bottom of the order, don't move him. Don't do it. And they did it, and it screwed him up for a good couple of weeks, and then he got back on track, and then once the team started slumping, he knew it was up to the top of that order to keep the offense afloat. He's like, I've got to get on here to do something for Soto and Judge, and putting that kind of pressure on such a young kid is unfair. So the Yankees should have never have moved him to the leadoff spot. they took him out of it, and now you can't do it again because if they keep doing that, it's going to screw him up even more.
Yeah,
They
no,
got to move
he's
him to the 9 spot for all I care and see if he can find success there. If that's where his future is, fine, perfectly fine. Because as we've said it several times, Jones said it earlier. You don't need 9 All Stars, but if your number 9 hitter is just a good hitter and a good defender, guess what? That's perfectly fine. It is perfectly fine because he's 22 years old and he's got plenty of room to get better.
yeah, and it's we've had this discussion about the generational gap, and it's not that we can't look. You think that before before 95, 96, you didn't have my when my generation had that championship run in the 90s. You don't think my parents or people older than me were like, well, let's see what these guys come up as. They're not going to be any. They're not going to be a mantle. Comparing that team, they're no Reggie Jackson. They're no. Oh, he's no Thurman. Poseidon's good, but he's no Thurman Munson. It's just a generational thing. It's not that we can't let go of the past. It's recognizing the past. Is really what it is. You know, like we're saying, Wells will be no Posada, but there were, like I just said, there were people that were saying that Posada won't be. You can't be Munson. That's where it's not an inability to let go. That's just throughout sports. It doesn't matter if it's baseball or just the Yankees. What's going on, Chris? It's it's gonna happen. We're looking at I know Rob's. Not that I'm really big outside of base. On my knowledge outside of baseball. You look at um, Eli Manning. Well, he was being. I don't know if he was ever compared to
I'll
Phil
I'll
Simms.
answer that for you right
Yeah,
now. He had to be Phil Simms, and guess what? Phil Simms, up until that Super Bowl season, they wanted him out. They tried to run him out of town. I wasn't alive for that, but I've read stories and I've learned up on the history of the team. They hated Eli Manning for his first 3 years. They wanted Eli Manning to be thrown out of the city. They hated the guy, and then he won a Super Bowl, and everything was fine. So it happens. It happens. Some players take a little bit longer to get into their get to their stride, but Raziel put it perfectly. Thurman is I. He's no Yogi though. That's exactly what they were probably saying in the 70s. Oh, this outfielder, he better be Maris, he better be Mantle. Oh, he better be DiMaggio. And now when you get to the 90s, it was like, well, this guy's got to be Munson. This guy's got to be like Guidry. This guy's got to be like Chambliss. And now we got to this era. This guy's got to be Jeter. It happens. You got to let the past be the past and just let these players be their own players, because then no one's ever going to live up to your expectations. If you were one of those fans that said Volpe's going to be the next Jeter, you were disappointed, because there is never gonna be another Derek Jeter.
yep.
There doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be Derek Jeter. It'd be fantastic if his numbers were like Derek Jeter by the time his career's over. But guess what? That wouldn't be for another 2 decades. So, like, what are we doing here? Right, Mercer was supposed to be the next Mantle. Like, we can't keep doing this for prospects because we're never going to be happy with them. They're already doing it to Spencer Jones. He's got to be the next Judge. He's got to replace Soto. That's
Yep.
not fair.
And Ken, along with your thought, look, it's Munson. You thought Munson was the best. I didn't see Munson play. I'm not as old as everybody thinks I am. But I've seen enough and I've heard enough. And years ago we had the privilege of uh, interviewing what his name just slipped my head,
Ron Blomberg.
Ron Blomberg. And hearing the personal stories about Munson. And we sat listening. We were in awe of the story. The way that Munson was looked at, and perceived throughout not just the Yankees but in baseball. Um, so the comparisons are gonna do, like they said, we're going to be telling our our grandkids, yeah, that's a great play, but Judge was you didn't even get if you didn't see Judge play, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right, like in
It's
30
gonna,
years, like let's say 30 years, some guy named Joe Schmo gets called up, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's got to be Judge. He better be like Aaron Judge. He's 6'6" and he's built like a tank. He better be Aaron Judge." Like we talking about something that's not even happening yet. This is what Yankee fans do.
yep,
Sometimes Yankee fans are stuck in the past because we have such a history. That we have the history that we do. We have so much expectations, but it's also incredibly unfair to do that to players. So just don't do it.
yeah. But one thing they better do is win. I don't care, so this generation needs a winning team. They really do. They deserve it. And the road to that starts tonight against the Rays. So let's hope that when we resume after the weekend, we are talking about some victories and a lot more positivity um, rather than the negativity we went into the break with. But with that being said, don't forget, tune in on Sunday with Lynn and Sierra on the upper deck. They're putting a great show together. They also do highlight a lot of things about women's baseball and the history of that. Um, and also Spence's trivia question of the week, which is always interesting. So make sure you tune in on Sunday at 11 and check out the ladies there. But as we always say, hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this out with your friends, your family, the stranger on the corner. And as I always say, let us pinch out your pride and play hard.